Hello everyone, this is JointheLightSideTV with your host, Michael. I wanted to apologize for my period of absence for the last month or so. There's been a lot going on as of late in terms of school and family, things that I've been needing to tend to, so the prospect of uploading things to the channel is sort of taking a back burner for the time being, but I'm hoping to start uploading again here very soon. I have quite a long list that I would like to discuss certain topics with all of you and exchange that sort of dialogue. Now today is going to be a special kind of episode. I have a co-host that I would like to introduce, but before we get into that, I wanted to do a little segue on the subject matter. So we're going to be talking about the movie that has drummed up quite a bit of controversy lately, to which I respond with a bit of a scoff because, well, the narrative that is centered around it in regard to the mainstream media, I think is largely unwarranted. Like there is little tabloids that are indicating that it's some sort of QAnon dog whistle and all these ridiculous criticisms. So I read some of those criticisms. I sort of took them into account. And, well, I didn't let that influence me from going to go see the movie. So my co-host today is actually my fiance, and we watched it last night together. And we're going to be talking about the experience of watching that movie together. So without further ado, I will be introducing her to the segment. Hello, everyone. So this is my co-host. This is...
Amanda. Hello.
This is my fiance, and she's actually the one that did my artwork, the crow artwork, and you can actually find her link tree in the description down below, and I encourage that you go and look at her material. It is beautiful work, and it's plentiful and full of quality and love.
Thanks, babe.
Would you like to do a little introduction for yourself?
Sure. I feel like I should take my glasses off so you can actually see my eyes. Yeah, I'm Amanda. I'm an artist. I also work in the film industry as a scenic painter, but I'm taking a little break from that right now. And I'm actually working on a mural. Very excited about that. It's going really well. And I also do a bit of energy healing. And yeah, I have an Etsy store, markets, but yeah, that's me.
Sounds great to me. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, we just saw the movie The Sound of Freedom last night, and before we went and saw it, I was sort of doing a little bit of a debrief with my fiance here, just regarding sort of the messaging that's been going on around it, and also the subject matter, because it is quite prevalent and strong, and has also real world applications to centering around child sex trafficking, which is not something that people really want to be discussing, and I can perfectly well understand why people don't really want to be talking about that kind of subject matter. But the fact remains is that it is a thing, and that simply ignoring it is not going to help the fact that it exists. And I actually somewhat make a contention that the fact that people are unwilling to talk about it makes it that much easier for these sort of shadowy figures to operate. So we're going to do a little bit of back and forth about how we felt about the sort of the transitions between scenes in the film. And just before we get started, this is obviously a spoiler alert, so if you want to go see the movie before listening to sort of our thoughts about the our segment, you may want to go do that before we spoil these details for you. So in the opening part of the film, so let's say the first like half an hour or so, what were your thoughts regarding that?
Well, I was a bit hesitant to go see this movie because I knew it was going to be hard to watch. And like that's a subject that no one really wants to talk about. But Michael just kept reassuring me that we should definitely watch it because it needs to be talked about. And I'm glad he pushed me to go see it because, yeah, it was an amazing movie. And yeah, it was. I cried often, especially that opening scene with the little boy. He was kidnapped and sold to this man, and the actors were also wonderful in that movie. But the little boy just, he seemed so scared, and you knew something bad had already happened to him, and it just like broke my heart. I like want to cry again just thinking about it. But the fact that that like is actually happening in the world makes me sick to my stomach. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, watching that kind of subject matter, like, you hear about it, it's one thing, and you're disturbed by the mere thought of it, but then, like, you see it, like, play out visually, even if it isn't, like, real in that sense, the mere, like, how would you say, mere simulacrum, there's, like, a simulation of it, and it is based on a true story. That I was actually reading interviews with Tim Ballard and sort of the to what extent it was true. And from the consensus I got, um, he shared sentiments that basically all the bad guys up till the forest scene later in the movie, to which that was embellished to a degree which you're gonna find that in any, like, based on a true
Yes.
story. But he said that with the sort of partner that he had in Colombia, and then the person that helped finance the operation, that was actually a different figure that was from the US. But the sort of framework that he was working with someone there that had been affected by this child sex traffic industry, and he unwittingly was a participant of it till he sort of found out after that part. I understood, at least conceptually speaking, it was pretty much on the money, and just yeah, with that one scene where the boy was reunited with his father, like, I was
Yeah.
trying so hard to, like, keep a straight face, but I knew full well that, like, before we went to the film, I'm like, there will be tears, and yeah, like, I was gripping your hand really tight,
yeah.
and
Yeah, you lost it in that scene.
yeah, I was like, and thank goodness you gave me that tissue right, right then
Yeah.
and there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it
that's
was.
sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
no, no, you go ahead.
No, that first scene, like I started crying right away. I'm like, this is gonna get teary eyed pretty fast. And I had an extra tissue. I'm like, I think Michael's gonna need this too. So
Yeah, your sense with that was on the money. So yeah, and to the credit of all the actors, as you're saying, like, they did such a good job with the authenticity of it. Like,
especially the kids, like
holy
those
crap.
kids blew me away. That's like pretty heavy subject matter to be acting on, but they did so good. And yeah, they like definitely brought that message forward and like really hit it in your heart. Like
Oh my
I want
god.
to cry again just thinking about it again.
Yeah,
But
and I'm sure that they also did their due diligence to, like, debrief them after.
yeah, yeah. There was a younger girl in the theater watching, and like we were talking about like how did we feel about that? Like she's probably like 8 or 10,
Mm.
and it's like part of me is like I don't know if she should be watching this, but at the same time, you don't want to hide your kid from everything. You want them to be aware of some of the negative things in life because even just like the feeling I had where I didn't want to see this movie is because I didn't want to know that this was real. Like I didn't like it's easier to not know that these
Oh
things
yeah.
aren't happening, right? But then after I watched it and I realized like the huge impact that it has on kids, like there are so many kids in child slavery and like sex trafficking, like more than you could even imagine. And I'm like, wow, this is like real. And like, we need to talk about it. It's like the same thing as like talking about something, about your feelings, but on a bigger scale. It's like a societal scale. Like, this is something we need to talk about and bring to the surface and not let happen anymore, because it's not okay. And yeah.
And I think that it also has like very much like home turf ramifications too, where like you have the overt sexualization of children here and sort of the potential consequences that can come from that as well. So these sorts of like strange like pageants and whatnot where like these 6 year olds are wearing makeup, like heavy like red lipstick, which is like, I mean, I think it's pretty uncontentious to say that like that is like a evolutionary single, that like the plumpness in your lips is like for kissing,
Yeah.
like implicitly. It's not like, like it's not victim blaming here.
No.
No, it's not. Like I'm not saying that, but like it does draw that sort of message to the wrong people, and that's like kind
Yeah.
of the fine line.
I think there's like nothing wrong with like a young girl wanting to put like some makeup on. Like, even like when I was in dance when I was a kid, I would wear makeup. And
Well,
it
then
was
that was
fun.
established 17 too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But in the movie, when they were like taking pictures of these kids for like their star shots, they were like tricking them to thinking they're going to like acting or something. So we're doing glamour shots, and they put like red lipstick on her, but it was very suggestive. Like
And
the
they open
poses they
their
were doing,
shirts and
very sexualized. So like there's definitely a fine line between like a young girl or boy playing with makeup and then it teetering into like sexualizing them. And
yeah.
I feel like a lot of things lately have been going into sexualizing kids.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up that thing with Target.
Oh God.
Target in the States,
Yeah.
they have this wall of dildos and sexual clothes, and their signs saying don't tell your parents, and it's like kids section. I'm like, that is absolute bullshit.
To which, by the way, I'm going to be supplying a link for where I found that clip, and you can make a decision yourself how you want to feel about it, or whether if you think that it's real, because there is some people online that have suggested that it is AI rendered. But I also found a clip from a very reputable comedian. His name's Ryan Long. You can go find his handle on YouTube. He is. I have absolutely no reason to believe that he would have like embellished this or anything. Like it wouldn't make sense, especially for a comedian. Like that's like how he makes
Yes.
his living, is like making light of like sort of the ridiculousness and absurdities of life. But that's one thing that's like you can't joke about that's evil. Like that's
Yeah, that's crossing the line. Like,
yeah.
kids are meant to be innocent, and they don't even understand that stuff yet at
Yeah.
that age. And they shouldn't have to understand that at that age.
No.
So why are we doing this? Like, it should not be happening. Yeah.
And as a short side route, which I'm not going to articulate much more, but on the academia sides of things, they've been talking about how there's been like this call for the destruction of childhood innocence, and how that's sort of like supposed to necessitate for like a utopian society, which I is just like beyond insane. Like you can't even like, and then when you actually start reading to these papers, like you can like smell like the severe mental illness, and then you almost want to ask like, was the author themselves like molested when they're younger, and this is like just like a proxy for like them wanting to like almost like conceptualize their own like evil that has been done to them, and then like through projection that's like them trying to like make light of it
Trying
or
to
something.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting back on topic,
Yeah, to the movie.
yeah, the yeah, I think that they also I was reading a little bit with the interview with Tim Ballard, and he was saying how like he wanted to make it like as approachable as possible with such a subject where when it came to like, there was obvious suggestion that there was like extremely nefarious things going on, but it would kind of like have like a cutaway of some sort before it would actually show anything. And like, because I think that
That'd been way too much.
that I don't think that should ever be something that's featured in any
definitely
films.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be criminal.
yeah, literally,
Yeah.
like that should like be criminally chargeable, and like this would be no exception. Like I think that the same for whenever they've gone and tried to like have these like drag queen story hour things, and they've gotten the kids to like sexually dance like with the that's like, are you like kidding me kind of thing of like, I know if it were like our kids in there, like Papa Bear and Mama Bear would be coming out.
It just and it makes me sad because I like drag queens. I love Juno Burt. She's one of my favorites. I'm actually gonna go see her live. But
well, they're so much different, right?
Yeah, it's like, again, it's like if you're doing a show for kids, it should be for kids.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be sexual.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
And I think that's like one of the ultimate tragedies of that there's actually like a subsection of that. Like, I hate saying this because I actually just think it doesn't really drive the point home accurately enough, but like of that category, so to say, that people like happen to be drag queens and they like responsibly enjoy it within an appropriate setting, and like I have no problem with that. Like that's like, them living their lives and they're not bothering anybody about it.
Yeah,
and
it's fun and they're expressing themselves.
Which like I encourage, like if you try to like repress that like too much when it's like a mode of like arguably a healthy expression. Like I think that can be like a sign of like an unhealthy society if it like represses those sort of creative qualities.
But yeah, like you shouldn't be bringing like, I heard that they brought like dildos to like some drag shows for kids, and like just like why?
Yeah, and they'll like, have things like they'll be covering their nipples only, and they'll have like fake breasts like dangling out and everything, and it's like,
no, we can make that much more appropriate for children,
and
they can enjoy it, and then we can feel better about them enjoying it. It doesn't have to be this weird sexual version.
I think there's also a point of contention too, that it's like if you want to go to like an extracurricular thing that you can take your kid to, like
that's like, you have to know that there's probably going to be things sexually explicit in some of their shows, but you're choosing to take your kid.
Yeah, and like the fact that it's a part of like a school system though,
that's different.
Like that is like, it's like in some sense mandatory that they attend because they're like already in the school setting, and like, and they're unwittingly subjecting these kids, and their parents don't even know half the time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if they knew different, they would be pulling them out.
I think so.
Yeah. And but that was quite the segue in what we're talking about.
Go back over,
But it does have like some like similarities in that. But back to the movie. So I think that another strong point of it too, approaching more of like the midpoint on, I think that it played a healthy reservation of the like the sort of thriller aspect of it too, because like, he's dealing with some of the most psychopathic people alive. Like we're talking about how like pedophilia, we sort of contend, not that it's really a contest, but like that it's worse than murder.
I think so.
Yeah, because like at the inception of like a life like developing and sort of gaining a consensus of how to be in the world, you like snuff that out with like completely insidious and nefarious like intention. And to play it off too is like, I think one of the things too that really got me was when it was after the shipping container and that the boy was sorted out, and the guy was like, oh, like, if you don't listen to me, we'll kill your sister. But don't,
Manipulating him.
yeah, and like, but don't worry, nothing's gonna happen to her
If you
listen
do
to
exactly
me.
what I say.
Yeah, and like,
Poor thing.
yeah, and like knowing that while that wasn't real, is like I'm sure that there's either a flavor of that happening or it's
I'm
much
sure.
worse. And I almost want to think that it's way worse.
I think so.
They just skip right to the threatening,
Yeah.
like right off the bat, unless it's like the actual, like, the pedophile, then maybe they do a weird grooming thing, but like
Yeah.
when they're in transit, it's like they're, yeah.
They're being abused.
Oh,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
And it just, yeah, they're never the same. Like, they are now completely changed for the rest of their lives. And they'll probably, like, one of the characters in the movie, he had bought a prostitute thinking that she was like 20. Turns out she was only 12 or 14, maybe.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
He thought she was 25.
Yeah. And the moment he realized that and looked at her eyes and saw like the sadness in her eyes, it made him realize how awful all of this was. And that the fact that she was like brought into this at such a young age, it's like kind of became normal to her. And she kind of had, in a way, accepted it, probably just out of surviving. And that, yeah, it's not good.
And then in consequence of that, like when he had realized what he had done, he like was a part of that suffrage, and
Yeah.
he wanted to end himself.
Yeah.
Like that was like he did not want to go on any further, knowing that he contributed
Yeah.
to that sort of completely evil enterprise, not knowing. And then the question then becomes, is it like, is he really like culpable? And it's like, well, he is, like, whether if he knows or not, like the deed's been done, and the sort of preconditions were set that she was never 25. Like she wasn't even legal age, and the fact that, yeah, that went on, and there was the coercion like present and whatnot, not necessarily from him, but who was making her do it. And yeah, it was
But yeah, but ultimately he then changed around and decided that he was going to help these kids instead.
yeah.
So he did good out of that experience.
Yeah, and he helped in the way that he knew how, where he was like, whatever money he had, he would go toward actually buying their freedom.
Yeah.
And which I thought was really interesting character development with him, considering that he was a cartel, like, crime lord, basically. And even like the most like deplorable of the bunch, like that, like you'll notice that like in a lot of prison systems, the very first inmates to like be absolutely brutalized are pedos.
Yeah.
Like they will not like survive. And
No.
well, like, because it's a special kind of evil.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing more evil than that.
I also wanted to talk about all like the loopholes that this movie had to jump through to actually like get into the big screen.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so at the very end of the film, I believe his name was Jim Caviezel. Oh, I'll put a little annotation of what his real name was here. He had a little debriefing at the end where they had actually shot the movie 5 years prior, and that they had been like fighting to actually get it pierced through, and then they finally found a collaboration company to help put that through. And I thought it was like astounding. Like I couldn't help but, like, before that even happened, I was the first to applaud when that movie ended. Like, and people did applaud at that. And then he brought up that messaging and how they put up a little barcode at the end that was like, you can like contribute to like someone paying for somebody else to come see this movie, which we did donate to that, because like I don't think that there's anything more like meaningful and precious than like bringing awareness to what's going on with this, and that we need to do what we can to try and stop this.
And just the fact that they had so much trouble like showing it to the public is like a huge red flag.
Oh my god,
like
it's unbelievable.
The fact that someone, or probably many people, they want to protect these types of people.
Yeah.
Like just knowing that, and like it kind of makes you see things differently. Like look at how much they're like pushing the Barbie movie. There's so much advertisement. Like I've seen it all over social media. And I'm just kind of seeing how things are like they're trying to distract you from like other things that are happening. So I think it's just a message just to always think critically.
Yeah.
And I get sucked into that stuff too. Like I was like so hyped about the Barbie movie and I wanted to wear pink and blah blah blah. But then after I saw this movie, I'm like, it doesn't really matter.
No.
It's like you want to enjoy life, but there's also like there's bigger and more important things in life that we need to talk about and be aware of, and be careful of the distractions that you look at every day and what you're being fed every day online. Like it's very subtle.
Yeah, and as an interesting segue too, like because like initially the idea behind Barbie, that was like proposition, we're actually watching that segment from
Amala.
Yeah, Amala. She was talking about how like there was like in the mid 80s, there's that advertisement from Mattel that was like very like pro-feminist within that time frame, which it was like definitely the best.
It was a great ad.
Yeah, like, and it was like featuring like Barbie as an astronaut, and like literally sky was the limit. Not to play the pun.
It's like you could do anything. It was really cute.
Yeah,
very Barbie. Like Barbie is definitely about that for sure.
And I know that like when we go to have kids, that's the messaging that like our kids gonna get. It's like anything you want, sky's the limit. We're gonna be there to like support you.
You just gotta put the work in.
And it was just like really interesting to see how like this is sort of another. There's so many segues in this. Yeah,
they're all related.
But yeah. I remember reading about this one pivotal figure in the 60s. I believe his name was George Lukács, which he was a Hungarian Marxist, and he basically pointed out that there's these like pillars of institutions that create a cultural hegemony, which is like basically like form, if you were to put it into an analogy, it's like a force field which just secures the culture and makes it stable. And so he pointed out that there was like the educational sphere, the cultural sphere, like, popular culture and things like that. And there was like a few other things, but the main contention that I was going to get at was popular culture, and how like for the past like I can't even remember how long Barbie's been around, like 50, 60 years, like prevalent.
Yeah, a long time.
And how that is like a very unifying idea, that like Barbie's the thing and people know Barbie, and then they use that as a point of entryism for brokering like wokeism.
Nostalgia gets everyone, right?
Exactly. So they take that idea of popular culture and they use that as a point of division, where it's like, oh, here's the snake oil, like it's, or sorry, the attractive idea that it's like, Barbie, you love Barbie, don't you? Well, don't you want to come see the film?
Get very excited about it.
Yeah, and because I had a bit of my reservations about it, just knowing that like basically all like so many Hollywood productions are crap now.
And like I haven't watched it yet, so I can't say too much about it. I probably will eventually watch it, so I can actually have a real opinion. But yeah, it's probably like a good movie, but also just I don't know, just be aware of what you're being force fed online.
Yeah, no shit.
Like
Yeah.
literally force fed. Like
Yeah, just be like, we need our bits of technology to just even basically navigate these days.
And I feel like it's so easy just to like get lost in like La La Land and want to distract yourself with all these like funny videos, which is fine, but also there's times to like dive into the things in life that aren't so happy and to make sure that you know what's going on.
And so, getting back to the movie a little bit, I wanted to ask your thoughts about when he was in Colombia and he was talking with his wife and the sort of exchange that they had. Because after you share your piece, I have something interesting to insert of how it really went.
And that when he's in the tent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sorry, no, not in the tent. Before he basically cut himself off from Homeland Security.
Right. Yeah. So he was about to quit his job because they wouldn't let him there. So he rescued this little boy, and then, but hadn't rescued his sister. She was lost still, and um, he like reunited the boy with his dad, and the dad's like, "How would you feel if you had an empty bed at your home still when your children was missing?" It's like, well, obviously you couldn't sleep at night. And he was like, I need to go get this girl. And he like pleaded to his boss, but he's like, we can't do it. So he quit and did it anyway, which is amazing.
And he was also like 10 months out from his pension.
Yeah, he didn't care. He's like, this girl is more important than all that. More important than money, which I would agree.
Yeah, no kidding.
And his wife is very supportive of him, and she basically said, do what you need to do for this girl because she's a child and she needed him desperately. And if it wasn't for him, she probably would have either died or suffered there for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So sure. Because he was so brave and like sacrificed his pension and possibly even his life, he could have lost his life for sure.
Put his life up, yeah.
But he did it anyway. And I feel like he was like guided by a higher power. Call it what you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a very important message that it's good to make some sacrifices and to not always think about yourself all the time. Because I feel like it's very easy to think about yourself all the time now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a message that is like, whether if you're secular minded or not, I don't think that's relevant. It's more to the fact that like the message of living to serve is just so damn lost.
It is
sad.
And I feel like you don't realize how much satisfaction and fulfillment you find from serving other people or like giving something to other people with balance. Of course, you need to take care of yourself, but
totally, yeah.
But yeah, that I think a lot more people would be happy if they did that.
Yeah, the pendulum has swung a little far from that, you know.
Yeah, a little too self-serving.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Yeah.
And so or at least to the best that I can recall, I'm not Tim Ballard, so I can't say this totally accurately, but it went something like, when he had that conversation with her, how it really went was, I will not be, or what, how did it go again? It went something like, I will not be responsible for you putting in jeopardy my salvation. Because she considered it that if you didn't do this because of me, I would also be going to hell, because it's like very much in the real sense that like you could have done something, now I'm culpable for you not trying to save a child.
She would have stopped or could have stopped him, but
yeah.
And she also said she felt like that girl was like one of her own daughters. Was like, you know, like every child I feel like could be that. Like they're just so pure and loving. And yeah, how could you not want to protect a child and save them from that?
Yeah.
So.
And he'd already been so deep in the situation with like having met her father, and like I don't even think that would have been necessary. He seemed like he was the kind of character where it'd be like just having knowledge of her being out there and the possibility of her still being alive was enough
Mm-hmm.
for him to want to do that. And I totally believe the motivation too, like just especially since he was definitely like, I almost posed him as an archetypical like holy man, that
Yeah.
he had like a divine quest, that he had that sense of purpose to like save these children, and that's why he's put here. And like especially with the amount of like absolutely like hellish material and
Oh, he had to
experiences
watch awful things.
and transcript it,
Yeah.
like the
Like
fact
videos
that,
of like children
and he
being
also
abused.
and I'm pretty sure that this was like very much true too, where like he had to like fabricate a sense of self to try and lure these pedophiles into trusting
Yeah,
him,
he had
so
to act.
he had
Yeah.
to act like them, yeah, and to like be able to exit outside from that,
Oh my
like,
god.
yeah.
He must have gone through so much therapy, that poor man.
Oh, an unbelievable amount of support
But
from his family, like holy
yeah, but what an
moly.
amazing man. Like that is an amazing man right there.
Even just like saving one child enough would
Yeah,
be enough to be called amazing, but he literally like helped save
so
hundreds
many.
of kids.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have these like mainstream media outlets, they're calling this movie like, I don't know if you've heard about this, but they called the movie a dog whistle for QAnon.
What does
That
that even mean?
so QAnon is like a white ring, like a conspiracy theorist, like thought process, basically, that
Mm.
like, you know, with January 6th and the insurrection and all that, that was like a QAnon conspiracy and everything.
Yeah,
And
well, again,
it's
they're trying to protect those rich people that want to keep doing this shit. Like, what was that island you're talking about? Where this actually,
Epstein
yeah,
Island.
Epstein Island, where they had kids 24/7 for these pedo freaks. And they go party there and do whatever they wanted.
Yeah,
And those people have a lot of money.
yeah.
So, who do you think is influencing these views and opinions?
Psychopathic, like very powerful people.
That's
Yeah,
why I keep saying like be careful what the shit you see online
yeah.
because it's very influenced by people like this.
Oh, for sure. And like, yeah, just going back to the whole fact that like this movie had to go through so much to even like
Yeah.
reach a public theater. And the fact that like I think that's something that's been largely lost in our day and age, is like truly meaningful films that actually
Yeah.
like drive something, that you can take something out from it,
Yeah.
that like makes you like
Feel
actually
something.
have like this, that we could
Yeah, oh
talk
my
about
god.
it.
And I felt like so much closer to Michael after this movie. Like my heart. Ugh. We cried together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was something,
It
man.
just you just it makes you remember like the really important things in life. It's not just a distraction. It's like it breaks open your heart
And I think
in the
there's,
best of ways.
yeah, and there's a really deep psychological principle to this sort of practice too, where like if you gradually expose yourself staring into the abyss, that you're capable of like in a very non-naive way of being able to see a light pass through that. Because like I would
Mm-hmm.
say that if you have no exposure to things like that, the second that you see something that's terrible, like the obvious instinct is to look away. But the
Yeah.
thing is that you don't always get that luxury.
No.
Or like it's maybe you're physically capable, but it actually like wreaks havoc upon your psyche so much that it creates a irreparable fracture. And
Mm.
it's like the psychological principle of like gradient exposure, that
Yeah.
like you're much stronger than you think you are.
Yeah.
And I was trying to emphasize that with you when we
Mm-hmm.
first like were going to it, because I told like every like fiber of my being understood your
I did
reluctance.
not want to go.
And like there was a big part of me that didn't really want to go either, but like I
Mm-mm.
knew that this was way more important than that.
Again, it was bigger than ourselves. I'm like, it's not about me. It's
Exactly.
about this subject and these kids and yeah, like even that's an act of bravery, and in my opinion, it's like putting yourself over here just for a moment, so you can help these other people. And and Michael's right though, like I my emotional cup has been very full these past few weeks. A lot of stuff's been happening in my life, and I didn't think I had the capacity to watch this movie and be okay. Like there was a moment after that first scene with the boy in the van where I looked at the exit sign and I was like, I could walk out of this theater right now, or I could stay here.
And I wouldn't stop you either.
No, but then I was like, nope, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna be fine, and I'm strong. And as hard as it is to like deal with all these things, there's still like wonderful things in your life to be grateful for. And I feel like that's just kind of how life is. It's like you have all this good stuff, but also really horrible things. And that's why like having gratitude for what you do have is amazing and necessary.
And that's like an active practice too. Like you have to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's constant effort to like because it's so easy to be resentful. Like it's like almost like a snap reaction.
Yeah, it's like we are so lucky here. We have so much here. And it 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 kind of it actually pisses me off when people complain so much online now.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like when people are like check your privilege, it's like no, actually like check your privilege, and I mean that in, like the sense,
fullest sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
not just like thank you for that, yeah, just like
yeah, like
actually like
the fact that you can walk outside and chances are you're not gonna get fucking mugged or stabbed
yeah,
or like kidnapped,
and you have
like
food and clean water
or
and
like a
probably
good majority of us
yeah.
do. Um, even with how tough things have been, and I think you could lay that at the feet of a lot of really terrible policy of what's been going on lately, but that's another
Yeah,
subject we're
that's a
not going
whole
to get
other
into.
subject we can
Yeah.
talk about, but yeah, it's just just be grateful for what you have, and even if you're in a bad place, there's always something to be.
And that was one of
Yeah,
my favorite psychological principles that I parsed out from Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order book. Be grateful in spite of your suffering.
yeah,
Because that, and I think that in itself, like, is a practice of faith that doesn't necessarily need to be fundamental, where, like, despite how terrible things are, you're able to actually, like, press on and like in the aspiration of things getting better, they may be absolutely abhorrent now, but you have to conduct yourself in a way where it is better so you can for the people around you. Because if you just accept that things are terrible, at which like by all rationalizations you can make, and like it's hard to be like that's not true, but like that's when I think actually rationalization hits a wall and like a
yeah,
spiked brick wall where it's like, okay,
yeah.
like you can make that point, but like it's not going to actually make you persevere.
No, that's when, like you're saying, faith, hope, optimism comes in, where you gotta trust that things are gonna get better, and having people you love around you to hold on to. People are like what probably the most important thing in life. Like not things, people.
Yeah,
Whether it's a friend or whoever, just
your
or even an
partner.
animal, just connecting with someone
Yeah,
you care about. And for me personally, meditation has helped me greatly. You could call it praying, meditation, whatever you believe in, but just connecting to something bigger than yourself. And that's what brings
that's
you that
huge.
trust and that faith and optimism that, things are really hard right now. There's someone looking out for you, or multiple things looking out for you. Yeah.
And I like each person is capable of being so much more and has so much to potentially offer in a positive way. It's just a matter of being able to come upon that. And I think that one of the most sure ways going about that is like to actually like embark on an adventure where like you have uh, the throes of life like issuing you challenges and like a matter of how you framing it too. Like I've been listening to a few things with Denzel Washington lately, and that guy is an absolute boss from what I've been seeing. Like he goes on this interview and he he said something so well where it was like, so there's often like, not to make it too dichotomous or binary, but it's like there's often two types of people in the world. They're met with a sort of hard like sought task, and they're either like, I can't do this, or they view it as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the phrasing of it being an opportunity is actually like a super important mental framework
Yeah.
to
And,
apply.
and honestly, I feel like everyone's both those people.
Yeah.
It's just the
Yeah.
choices that you make. Are you going to be this person today? Are you going to be this person today? And you're probably going to be both those people.
Yeah.
But if you choose more, I'm going to make this an opportunity, then you're going to get farther.
And I think that's like the choice word is choice.
Yeah.
Like that's the watchword too.
Yes.
Is like that it is a choice, and then because like whether if you're active in making it or not, there is a path that was set and that came with a choice.
Yeah, you chose to go down this path. There's some things obviously you can't control.
Yeah.
But it's how you choose your way out of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much power in that. Like, people don't realize how much power they have with their choices.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then like when it came to like the closing of the movie, just bringing it back to that again, after he had rescued her and they'd reunited, and we had another
big cry
ball session with
yeah.
that. Yeah, after they, which like if you didn't stick around for the special segment of that movie, I strongly suggest that you do watch that. If you go to watch it the next time, it was really important, and there was statistics drawn up by Homeland Security which featured at least the surface reality of it, which it could be worse for all we know. But the fact remains is that they were startling in their proposition, and that it was
what were the stats?
It was about like $125 billion revenue industry, and that like up around 2 million children are like
in child sex trafficking
and slavery.
And there's more slavery today than there ever was,
including that of like the
when it was legal.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
And it makes sense too, just given that we have so many more people, and that there is parts of the world which are like informationally blacked out.
Yeah.
That like they don't have access to technology and everything. Like I guarantee you that there's like a huge demographic of like Africa, for instance, where it is like, for all intents and purposes, it's basically slave labor when they go down into the mines and bring out these valuable minerals and stuff. Yeah. It's basically slavery, and they're getting traded monetary means that's not even theirs, for one. So like all money is being shipped overseas, which is like the worst kind of colonialism that you can find, that they don't even get to reap the rewards of what their home soil entails. And if we were to face that here and it was sent abroad, like it would like be stink to no end. But because there's like stifling of that kind of thing. And I remember watching this one interview with the Italian government, which I'm sure there's mixed feelings about her, but she, as far as I can tell, she's a absolute boss. Like she is so on the point with what she says a lot of the time. And one of the things, like she was in a televised interview And there was like this thing where she was featuring stats where there's like this chart that was like um, gold reserves that were held in each like of the highest of nations. It was like US was at the top, and then like number 4 was France. But France is not like rich in gold. Like they have mines there, but they're like not plentiful. And they've had that gold shipped from parts of Africa over to them, and they absolutely screw them out of proper wage. So they basically just like rob them of their fundamental resource. And when there's these things like with them trying, like the United Nations and whatnot, trying to enable these really backwards policies where they're like, I can't remember what World Bank it was, but basically they're like, oh, one of the most impoverished nations in the world, we're going to enable a $900 million investment into solar energy. And like over 60% of the population didn't even have access to electricity, or they didn't even have a grid. So, like, basically, they're throwing money down the toilet. And it was a nation that was also super abundant in natural gas. And they're just like, no, you can't do that. You can't have affordable like electricity and like be able to industrialize to better their quality of living. Into right now they're using things like biofuel. So like they're burning dung, like wood, like very low quality, very low yield energy, and it's super harmful. And then they
Yeah.
come in and they're like, we're going to use solar, which can't be stored. Only lasts like 5 years before they need to
And
replace
they
those
don't have the
things.
infrastructure
And they
for
don't
it.
have the infrastructure, and those things are impossible to
Yeah.
get rid of. They're
Yeah.
super toxic. So like this whole finger waving notion of like these like,
It's like the trends. The things that are trendy right now.
yeah,
It doesn't work for everyone.
well, it actually works for like virtually none, because
Yeah.
it's not like renewables are not really renewable, like wind and solar and all that. They're not really
Well, no
renewable
matter what, any energy source is going to have a pollutant,
of some
or,
sort,
you know, you can't really escape that. So,
at least for the time being. And like it's one thing to try and pledge for that, and it's another to actually make like cheap, clean, accessible energy. And the best form of that seems to be natural gas for now.
for
And
now,
then
yeah.
once we make that as efficient as possible, then we can start seriously taking a look at renewables that are way better
Yes,
than wind and
I
solar.
feel like we as a society need to be more patient.
There's no
And
patience.
no, we need to
Oh
more
my God.
balance. It's like we're getting there. We're getting to cleaner energy, but there's still things that we're not quite ready for, and we need to make sure that we're okay as a society, that we can afford the things that we need while slowly moving towards this new way of life. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like everyone's like so rushed and worried and everything. Oh my God, the world's at it. It's like, just relax. And that's where the faith needs to come back in again. It's like everything's gonna be okay, and we're gonna figure it out together. And let's support each other. Like, just take a breath. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, and that's also something I wanted to point out, how movies like this, they are so interconnected to these deep-seated issues that are going on, that it really is all interconnected in
Mm-hmm.
some way. And
Yeah, and we need to talk about it.
yeah, and the fact that like that's why we decided to donate some money so other people could see it, which
Yes.
it was amazing to see that over, not, I think it was 9,400,030, like it was a ridiculous sum, and their goal was 2 million, and they superseded it by like 4.5 times.
Amazing.
And I was just
Yeah.
like, holy moly, like the messaging of the movie was enough like for it to be extremely valuable. And yeah, the sorts of things that have been going into trying to stifle it and everything, like the only like response that I really have to it without going on a huge tangent is like, this is just evil.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to like the movie per se. Like maybe there you have some serious like creative contention with it and you have a reason to give it a poor score or whatnot, but like to be stifling a movie for trying to bring attention to something that is clearly a problem, that is like, check yourself, man. Like, are you kidding me?
And Michael said he's going to share the link to where you can get a free ticket if you can't afford to buy a ticket. So you can watch the movie.
I'll put it like a little like thing right here that shows what the actual link is, and I'll put it in the description down below too. So if for any reason you feel like you don't have the money to dole out, I mean, times are really hard, and like just like putting money towards yourself these days, like outside of your streaming service, if you do that sort of thing, like it's hard to dole out, but you can actually go on to, I believe the site is angel.com/freedom, and you can actually claim free tickets.
Yeah, and they really want people to watch in theaters, so you have no distractions, you're not looking at your phone, you're immersed in the message of the movie. And I definitely would agree with that. It's definitely the way to watch it in the theater. So.
Yeah, I was sharing that with my buddy too, Josh, which he has been on the show before, which I would really like to bring him back soon. I was really stressing him, like, you gotta see it like in theaters. That is the mode to see it. There is no better.
Being present.
Yeah, because like, you know, you could be like, oh, I got a phone notification.
Who doesn't do that now, right? After watching a show. Yeah, no. You need to watch this movie.
Yeah.
If you want to. I'm not, you don't have to. But
no.
We would recommend it, definitely.
No, that's definitely what we're getting at.
Yeah.
We recommend it. Of course, you don't have to. Like,
no.
Yeah, it's but it definitely comes with a big recommendation. It is it will definitely add to your as much as the undertones of the movie are very much nested in something terrible, like of an atrocity, as like the premise is that there is like a call to bringing attention to these sorts of atrocities in light to make them stop. And and I think that I'm sure that various other people have said this, but one of the famous scientific critics of our day, Ben Goldacre, says the best way to dispel any sort of like pseudo notions or pseudoscientific notions, the best thing to alleviate those things is light, bringing things to light.
There you go. I just got the shivers when you said that. It's a very good statement. Very good statement. Yes.
It's like literally that stuff's allergic to it.
Yeah, like it's like you can imagine it's like the shadows of life and even yourself, and once you bring them to the light, they're transformed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the awareness that we're talking about.
Absolutely. So before we're almost creeping up on an hour here. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we do a little closing here?
I think just, know that you don't have to agree with everything you see or like everything you see. You're allowed to think critically and just really trust your gut and listen to your heart. Mm-hmm. I think those are very important things to have. And however you can find ways to do that, like by meditation or whatever it is.
Meditation's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that'll help you navigate life right now. Life is kind of crazy and chaotic, so just coming into yourself and taking time to be present and sitting still will really help you figure out what your truth is. Yeah. And not what everyone's trying to tell you what your truth is. Yeah. So that's my advice.
It does help to have like universal truisms for sure. Yeah, like that actually bring us together instead of setting us apart.
Yeah, we do not want to be separated. We want to be united because we are so strong when everyone's united.
Yeah.
And let's stay united.
Another famous quote, together we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not let that happen.
Yeah, for sure. And not these weird, idiotic notions behind things like DEI. And I'm going to close it
Another
right there.
video.
Anyway, so if you liked watching the segment, please leave a like, a comment, share with your family, friends. Hell, share it with your family dog. Maybe they'll But anyways, thank you for joining us on this segment, and we hope that you have a very pleasant day. And as always, please watch out for each other, your friends, your family. Keep everything close, because these days things are seemingly dark, but the one light that I assure you that you can have is if you have good friends and family.
Yes.
They will help guide you towards the light. Thank you very much, and hope to see you guys in the next segment.